Good afternoon on what is a bright, chilly and breezy day. It is Friday, October the 22nd, and I'm here in the reading nook with a nice hot cup of tea and a cat that is not ours, who is very insistent on getting some attention. What I have with me today is another release from Free RPG Day 2021, which took place last Saturday on the 16th of October, and because it is the 22nd of October, it is this, which is the Quick-start, or basically the Wormsign the Dune Quick-start for Dune Adventures in Imperium, the new role-playing game from Modiphius Entertainment. Dune, the Dune Adventures in the Imperium role-playing game takes you into a far future beyond anything you've ever imagined, where fear is the mind killer, so be sure to keep your wits about you. Expand your game and the power of your house with a collection of Dune Adventures in the Imperium supplements and accessories. So there's a big ad, essentially what you've got, a big advert on the back for the various books and supplements. So there we go, and the dice, of course. So Dune Adventures in Imperium is the second role-playing game, basically to be based off the Dune intellectual property. First one came out 20 years ago from Last Unicorn Games. I've done an unboxing of that, and I've also done a review of that. I will be doing a review of this, and I plan to do a review of the Dune role-playing game when a copy comes my way. Now, I'm a big fan of the setting, and I enjoy the TV series. I even like the David Lynch film, okay, for all its flaws. Yeah, sorry, I just basically, he's happy now. I'm giving him some attention. He's already made me spill tea this afternoon, and that's a crime against humanity, isn't it? Or at least civility. Anyway, so this is Dune, Wormsign the Dune Quick-start. And this provides you with everything you need to know. You'll need to play a session or two or is set in Dune on Arrakis, obviously, because it involves worm signs. The playtest scenario, which we've already played, was essentially was you playing young characters going across to Arrakis as part of the essentially the pre-settlement team, the pre-adjustment team, when the Atreides take over from the Harkonnens. And the same characters used in that appear in this. So, it used, and obviously this uses the 2D20 system, the house system from Modiphius Entertainment. So that's figured in Mutant Chronicles and Conan, also John Carter of Mars, and the Star Trek Adventures, and the new version of Actung Cthulhu. And it's really simple. You have, let's have a look. I'm going to show you with the character. So you have, as you can see here, drives and skills with statements and foci. So the drive is typically replaces attributes in the other role-playing games. And basically what you do is you combine the two, so a drive and a skill, so it might be duty and battle, and you attempt to roll successes underneath that on the rolls of two 20-sided dice. If you have a particular focus, then you can essentially score extra successes, and then you and more successes you gain momentum, which you can expend on to buy more dice for future actions, or gain information, or an extra successes and that sort of thing. It's fairly quick, and it tends towards sort of like kind of pulpy kind of play. So what have we got in here? We've got an introduction, and that explains the whole setup to Dune, really explaining the differences between it and other science fiction, the fact that it's set sort of like 10,000, essentially it's actually, I think it's set like 14,000 years into the future, something like that. And there are no machines, there are no thinking machines. due to the Butler and Jihad. That's explored in more detail in a lot of the prequel fiction. And it also explains that you play agents of House Atreides. So we get into the basic rules, explaining what the various foci and stats are, and so on. A basic, clear explanation. Again, nice pieces of artwork in there already. And then how to use traits, complications, assets, and making a skill test. Using momentums, which is basically buying more d20s, creating an asset, obtaining information, and so on. The GM has access to threat, and gives you basically a guide. There's a guide to how to spend it. So threat is like the equivalent of momentum, but for NPCs. And it's also one of the features in here is basically the importance of gaining information, because with information you can act upon it. Then we go into essentially description of conflict, and finally the cat settle down. It's going to be disappointed when I have to get up and leave. So then we get on to the adventure itself, Wormsign. Now obviously that's set on Arrakis itself. It's what we're waiting for, essentially the sign of an oncoming sandworm. There we go. Again, nice piece of artwork, and again echoing scenes from the book and the film, where Leah Keynes goes out in search of, to show the Duke and Paul how spice mining works, and then they see a worm sign, and the Harkonnens have been sabotaging the spice mining operation, and the Duke goes down to rescue the workers. And so this scene one, over the Shield Wall, and ultimately, you're going out into the deserts of Arrakis, because the Shield Wall essentially protects the northern polar part of the planet, and we do want to get into basically into an encounter with a worm, because you guys have seen 3 Wormsign, and there's encounters with spice smugglers and soldiers, either from House Harkonnen or another rival house, because obviously they want to gain access to spice, and spice is important. It's the most valuable substance in the known universe, of course. And finally we have an encounter with the desert people themselves, before we get to the epilogue. So it's a shortish adventure. I shouldn't you make it will take a session to play through, perhaps 2, depending upon your players, and but it looks to be sort of like fairly action focused, I think, from what's going on there. And then we turn over, we've got the pre-generated characters. So we have a Mentat, there we go. And as I said, these are the player characters which were developed for the playtest scenario. And we have a criminal, a servant. Okay. So next, Bene Gesserit novice. Okay. I mean, again, really lovely illustrations here. And lastly, we've got a Swordmaster apprentice. So what's interesting about finally, we've got a reformed spice smuggler. Okay. So what's interesting about these characters is they kind of model the early days of the cast around Paul, and in the stories. So the Mentat could be seen as a young Thief of Hawat. The criminal would be probably Gurney Halleck. The servant would be Dr. Wellington Yue. Bene Gesserit would be Lady Jessica herself. So Swordmaster, of course, would be Duncan Idaho. And Corbin, I'm not sure about the reformed spice smuggler, but they all kind of perform that role. So essentially, there's the spice smuggler sort of like a cross between Gurney, sort of like in the essentially before and after he basically the events, basically before and after the events of the first, like the first events, the first book and film where the Harkonnens strike back. But yeah, so yeah, essentially all you need for this is some tokens for handle momentum, then a couple of, then basically 5 20-sided dice, preferably per player, but definitely one set for the players, one set for the referee, I would suggest. And you've got everything you need to give a taste of the Dune RPG, newly out this year from Modiphius Entertainment. I've had a glance at it, it's a lovely looking book, and I will give a proper review in due course, as I will of this very soon. Well, if you have enjoyed this unboxing or overview here in the Nook, then please do hit the like button down below. And of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, appreciate you posting those, and I do take the time to read them. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings in the Nook, whether of my standard reviews, which I post daily, or this overview series of the releases for Free RPG Day, which will be ongoing until I've done everything that I've been able to get hold of so far, then please do hit that subscribe button, and you'll see me here again with another book or a game which I will chat about to the best of my ability and extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all accompanied, of course, by a nice hot cup of tea and even perhaps a very insistent cat. Lastly, I want to thank David Salisbury at Farmboy3 for sourcing all of these books for me. Thank you very much. You have made this process a whole lot easier, and I will be doing future unboxings and overviews and reviews coming soon. In the meantime, thank you again for watching. I'll be back again soon. Bye for now.